Well, hello, it's Jenny Wallach here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm super excited to talk with my friend Maggie Eterno today. Now, Maggie, I have been watching you for a long time now, stalking you on your Instagram and really just obsessing over how great you are at your posts. They're so engaging, they're super exciting, and I am just obsessed. I think it's so amazing that you have all this energy, and I need to know more about that. But first, let's just get to where everybody can get to know you. So, who are you? Where are you? And what do you do?
Yeah, well, thank you, Jenny. I've also watched you for a long time, so this is really cool that I get to be here. And I know we were on a panel together in February, I guess, at family reunions. And I can't believe that's the first time our paths had crossed. I was like, but I'm Maggie Eterno, so I am in Georgia. And a little bit unique about us, I am a husband and a wife team, but we have two teams kind of spread out in Georgia. So I have a team in Swanee, Georgia, which is in the Metro Atlanta area, and we cover Metro Atlanta, Northeast Georgia. I actually grew up in Northeast Georgia, and then I moved to a small town called Jefferson, Georgia. And then we have another team in Athens, which, if you know, University of Georgia Bulldogs, that is where Athens is. And so we cover all of the greater Athens area. So it's all smaller towns in that area. So we cover a huge part of the state of Georgia. Georgia is just a little unique in the way that it's split into suburbs and small towns and things like that. So husband wife team, and there's 10 of us, 10 producing agents on our team. And then I've got an admin team. So I have a director of ops, listing management, marketing assistant, and recently an executive assistant who's helping my husband and I on the production side. So what I spoke about, and I guess is kind of my thing, is we have developed several ancillaries. So early on in our life, we own a locksmith business. My husband was a police officer for a long time. And then his dad, that was his trade. After his dad passed, he had learned it from his dad and his grandfather. So opened a locksmith business, got busy there, and then decided he wanted to go into real estate and ended up, we sold the locksmith business, which hindsight, wish we could have kept it. Kind of in the process and talks of potentially opening up another one. But we have a retail sales team, also have an investment team, so an acquisitions team, and they are our direct to seller team. They go and basically, if there's a property that wants to sell for cash, they either take it to our cash investors or they take it to our flipping company that we have as well. And so we do flips in that ancillary, and we renovate flip. Sometimes we hold, but more than likely we're flipping. And then a lot of times it'll come back to our team as a listing if it, doesn't just, the numbers don't work there. From that as well, we also have a title company. And so we partnered with our local attorney. We've known them for over a decade. And so told them, how can we partner together? We are closing with you guys, closing over 100 deals some years. And so we are partnered with them. And it's pretty awesome. It's been one of our, I don't say easiest because it's not easy, but as far as like the return, it's been really, really cool to add that into the box. And then this past year, last year, we started to do some hard money lending. And so my husband opened up kind of that lending division. And so it kind of all feeds into each other. The retail team does real estate. They sell, help buyers buy, and then all the others kind of feed kind of together. And then most recently this summer, we opened a landscaping company that my son is actually, he's kind of the jockey, him and a friend. And so we've got a JV. So we've got a mobile home park that we bought, and we sold shares to our team members. And so our team members became investors, and they're able to use that, as a real estate professional, you get tax benefits. So they're able to take advantage of the tax benefits. And so we had a mobile home park. We had several flips going. We have a couple other holds, and we were paying money to a landscaper. And my son decided he didn't want to go to college right after high school. He wanted to take some time and learn how to do business. And so he is out there with a friend launching that. And they've been training all summer and just launched into allowing them to take on like real clients, just not us. So yeah, so that's a little bit about us there.
That's all that you
Yeah.
have going
That's
on,
it. That's
Maggie?
all. Yeah, and I do coach a little bit on the side too. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's just so mind-blowing that, and still though, it opens up our minds to possibilities, right? Like sometimes we can hear all of these things. Well, they didn't all happen at once. They happened over time sequentially so that, you were able to fold those things in. Now, you though got started in real estate, not like I mean, it's been 10 years now, but this wasn't like your, job for early on. Like you didn't have a goal of being in real estate, I don't think. Will you kind of share how that all evolved?
Landed here. So I am, if you're familiar with like the Enneagram or personality test, unfortunately, I'm an achiever. So I'm a 3 on the Enneagram and I get lost in goals and achieving and I need, anything like that. And so for me, right out of college, I worked at Bank of America actually as a personal banker, and I took the applications for mortgages. I didn't underwrite the mortgage loans, but I did do that. And I just wanted to climb the corporate ladder. That was my thing. And so, unfortunately, after getting married, I went through a really just dark season of some anxiety and depression. And so, after having kids, it kind of got worse. And so, I stayed home, and that is when my husband he was a police officer, worked several jobs just to keep me home. We couldn't really make ends meet. And that's what kind of got us into figuring out like, what could we do a little bit different? And that's when he started the locksmith business. And then after that, he's like, I'm going to start the real estate business. And when he started that, I was just kind of on the side. I had a marketing degree, marketing psychology degree. And I'm like, well, I can help you make flyers or kind of post here and there on Facebook. Facebook wasn't a big thing. I mean, it was, you know, I guess Facebook came out when in like '06 or '07, I think. And so I kind of just helped him behind the scenes for a while. It was only going to be a side thing. He only wanted to sell one home a month because that would allow us to go on vacation. And he quickly realized that he was really good at it and ended up getting Southeast Region Rookie of the Year that year. So it was more than just one house a month. And so it kind of was one of those things where we were like, wow, like real estate's really changed our lives. It can do so much more. And so he said, I don't want to do this alone. I want to do this with a team. And me, I was like, oh, I'll just help with some marketing flyers and all the things. I still stayed home with the kids, and that spent most of my time. But anyways, long story short, it got to the point where he really needed someone to help on the ops side. And he looked at me and said, I'm either going to have to hire someone or I can hire you. We're a yin yang. So what he's good at, I'm not great at. What I'm good at, he's not great at. So it kind of worked that way. But I didn't want to come into this business because I looked at it as his business. And I was like, I want to pave my own way. Stubborn, achiever. And so I kind of searched for a little while trying to figure out my route. And finally I was like, what am I doing? Like I can come over here. And I thought about being a teacher because I could get my master's. I speak Spanish, and I was like, I can be a high school Spanish teacher. And honestly, what changed my mind was a conversation with somebody that was sharing what they were getting for retirement. And when I realized how simple that would be to have a couple rentals and then still have flexibility and freedom, with my time and my children, I was like, what am I doing? So I joined him more full time in like 2019 and kind of came in and have slowly fired myself. And until one day he looked at me and he said, you're the CEO, right? Like that's what you're doing now. So it's been a pretty cool journey. I started accountability meetings with my agents. They were really awkward 6 years ago. And it was just, I kind of realized, I think we need some accountability. All these leads are coming in and no one's really figuring that out. So I kind of just, figured out what needed to be done. I talked to a lot of people ahead of me and see what they were doing and started these little accountability meetings and have slowly developed this passion for coaching. And so that's honestly what I love to do a lot more now. So I individually coach all of my agents one-on-one every week. So.
Well, that is an amazing journey. And I think what's so fun about our profession is it doesn't really matter where you come from or your behavioral style. Everyone can find their path and their way inside of this business, this industry with so much opportunity. So as you were full-time being a mom, which is such an important job, I feel that you are maybe a bit like me. Like we just know there's more that we can do and we have that drive to do it. How did you really dive into social media? I know that I'm a huge fan, like I said, of following you on the socials. And so, how did you find that that was your path
Mhm.
to share who you are, the stories of momhood and business and working with your spouse and real estate? How'd you get there?
So I've been told by someone one time that I something unique about me is that I share from my wounds, not just my scars. So I am very open with people, and I think that's from years of just battling anxiety and depression. And back in '04, I mean, nobody was talking about anxiety and depression. It was very much something, just not a great stigma with it. And I remember for me, I just hid that for a very long time and just try to kind of fight it on my own. And so after a little while, when I started kind of opening up and finally sought help, I realized, okay, I'm not alone. And then a lot of the anxious thoughts and feelings I had, a lot of other moms had, like it just wasn't me. And I love to write. I've always been a writer and, I've journaled all of my life, and that's a big passion of mine. I also am a pastor's daughter, so I grew up in church, and my dad would speak at English speaking congregations and I would translate for him. So like he would speak in Spanish, I would translate in English. So I was used to being in front of people and used to being on stage and things like that. So I started to teach Bible studies and started to do little things like that. And I realized that sharing a little bit of my story would help others. And so when Facebook came about, I also started a blog, and it was kind of a blog just about my kids to share with my family in Mexico, like what we were doing, what we were up to. And I love just sharing and writing. That was the biggest thing. And then it developed into just sharing a little bit more of like personal things, like what I was struggling with. And so I would just have people that would randomly say, like, oh, that helped me a lot. Thanks for sharing. Nobody talks about that. And then as social media kind of became more of a thing, like I didn't do as much blogging, I did more posting and started to just develop a small community of people that just were very grateful for that. And so when I got into real estate, I already kind of had a little bit of that Facebook community, but it just kind of blew up a little bit afterwards. And I think I started to realize when, I started to share some wins or something that Joe did, and then he'd say, your post, I got a lead from that, or so and so called me because you posted. And so it just kind of became something that I continued, and I could always tell because I do still take breaks. We all need them. And one of the things that I just haven't really wanted to do is make it my full-time job. Like I want to be able to take a little bit of a break. And so, but I would notice when I would not post or when I didn't engage, business was just slower. I never really tracked it, but we could see it. And then I'd start posting again, and the phone would ring or the text would come in, or, things like that. So it's really crazy. Like you try to explain it, but it just, I mean, even a couple weeks ago, I got a buy and sell. And then I got also a friend from college that said, I'm so glad you posted that house that your team sold because I was looking for an agent in your area and I'd love to use you. That's where my parents live. So, and then that turned into, well, we have rentals in Atlanta. Well, do you know about owner financing? And we do, because we do creative financing. And so it was just this whole thing of opening opportunities just by building community. So,
So good, so good. Well, it's because we are a group that likes details and tactics and tools, how would someone, if they're not quite where you are, because I'm looking at your Instagram right now, you've almost got 6,000 followers, which in our field is pretty big number of friends that are tuning in to see how you're doing each week. How do you start to grow that? And how now I believe you probably are paying attention to the metrics and what actually gets engagement.
mhm. Yeah, so for a while on Instagram, I was private. I didn't really want to share,
Mhm.
be public. And so I would go back and forth because I was like, well, I kind of want to be, we all want parts of our lives not, in the internet and things like that. So it was almost like Facebook was kind of for my friends and family. And then I'm like, well, Instagram will be for everybody else. And then it didn't match. So for me, I would say is you have to really pick what you want your social media to do. And I think that there's a lot of different ways, and you can get lost comparing yourself to a lot of different real estate agents because everybody does it differently. And you have agents that all they do is talk about real estate. You have agents who share their life. You have agents who do kind of both. You have agents that have one page and then another page is that. And so for me, what I would do is track what you're doing. So the best advice someone gave me was just post. Like don't think so much, what am I going to post today? Just post and then see from that what kind of engagement did I get? What kind of like did someone comment? Did someone tell me? And a lot of times, like I would get hung up on either the likes or the comments, but then I'd be at Target and someone would say, "Oh my gosh, your Instagram and this and that." And by the way, like my dad's thinking about selling, so I didn't get lost so much in that. Now I do kind of look at those metrics, but for me, I decided that I wanted my Instagram to be me and not just one part of me. Like I'm a real estate agent and, right? Like I'm not just that. And I battle with that a lot because there are agents that are like, you got to find your niche and this is all you have to do. And for me, it's this is what works for me. So I did try to be all real estate for a while because I said, let me test it and see what happens. And my engagement went down, everything went down. And I was like, okay, obviously, this is not who my people want me to be. And so I went back to, I'd used ChatGPT and AI and I said, this is my Instagram now. These are the things that I love to do. Write me. And I did a whole thing of like, write me a business plan of how I can use my Instagram as part of my business. And so it gave me my buckets, it gave me ideas, and then I just tweaked it because some were forced, and so I was like, I just kind of tweaked it. And so for me, once I really dialed into my metrics, I saw that people loved the funnies because the funny is what brings you. Because I was like, oh gosh, I can't be too funny or that's silly. But the funny stuff is what brings in a lot of new followers. And so that really also builds community. And so I started to just add in something funny every now and then. And I did kind of notice where that was a big one. But then I do talk about my family. So I talk about being a mom. I talk about being a wife. So a lot of mine and Joe's do really well also. And then I do talk about my job as a working mom. And so in my stories, though, I am heavy real estate. So I am very heavy as far as what I'm doing on the day to day. A lot of times that's where I get responses like, oh my goodness, blah, blah, blah. And so I just, on the post side, I am more, mom, I'm a wife. You could probably see just from there. But for me, it's like decide what you want to do and then just do that. But the biggest thing I found out is that you can't be a consumer. You have to be a producer of it. You've got to produce the product of a reel. Also, you have to engage because you have to build community. So when I began to really I would comment on other people's things and then I would make sure that I replied and then I would reply on stories. You're building that community, and that's what eventually is going to get you the results that you want to get. But as far as the follow increase, that's been from like family reels. I did a reel of our Papa at the beach house. He's 96 years old and he comes to the beach with us every year. And that reel had, I think, like 3 million views. And that reel alone got me like 2,000 followers. It was crazy. And then it hit on Facebook. So I don't share all my reels on Facebook. Facebook's a little different. We can go into that if you want. But I did share that one. And I didn't know that I could have followers on Facebook, but I think I have like 7,500 on Facebook all of a sudden. And I got a lot of those from there. I didn't even realize. But in mix with that one, I shared a reel of being a 5 foot just wife or something funny. And so between those two, they played on each other and that following increased. But I had random people that an agent out of South Carolina came up to me and said, oh my gosh, we saw your reel of your papa. And his mom shared it in a family chat. So it was really crazy. So yeah, so for me, that's kind of more my tactics is like my life. This is my life. And I kind of open it up to
Well,
people.
we're going to wrap up here shortly, and you mentioned something that I was going to ask you about is your how you feel about using ChatGPT and AI in this new world. We need to understand it and utilize it, but still be a real person, which clearly you're great at doing. And so, tell everyone how you mentioned it already. So, is there anything else we need to know, or just embrace it?
The biggest thing with AI is you don't want it to be you don't want it to sound like AI. So first of all, take the dashes out, take the hyphens out, right? That's like the biggest thing. Do not put dashes or hyphens. But also really it's learned me because I've been playing around with it. And so if I put it in a concept, so basically I say, "Hey, I need a reel about," I was trying to think of one that I did the other day about my daughter. So my daughter's a senior, she's a varsity cheerleader, and I just kind of had an idea. You got to think of like things that people relate to. And those are the ones that kind of hit. And so I was like, my daughter's a senior. I'm sitting here at the pep rally, and all I can think about is her being little and cheering when she's little. I overlay text. So the overlay text that goes on top, I always say, "This is what I'm thinking for it. Write me a caption that goes with it." And so then ChatGPT and I just kind of we go back and forth. And if I don't love it, I'm like, you know what, I don't love that. Change it up. And then when it finally gives me something that I like, I finish by asking it to make sure that it is SEO optimized and that keywords are in both the overlay text and the caption, especially now that the Instagram Reels are coming up in the Google searches. You want to make sure, because that's a big one, because those will come up in Google searches now. And so I just do that and ask it for a couple of hashtags and kind of go through there. And but yeah, I treat it like a employee. I'm like, "Hey, well, no, I don't like that," and you just go back and forth with it. So don't be afraid of it, and you can talk to it now. So like in the car this morning, actually, we were working on a YouTube episode, and I was like, "Nope, I don't like that. The segments are too vague. Add some details." And at the very end, once I liked the script, I said, "Now go back and fact check this script and make sure every number and information you gave me is real." And so it goes back and fact checks it for you.
It's just the best brainstorming partner, assistant. And again, like you said, we've got to double check it at the end and make sure it really does sound like us.
Mhm.
Maggie, share with everyone as we head out here, just what are some final tips that you want to share with our agent community who, may be interested in whether it's growing a team or having ancillary businesses or even diving into socials at the level that you have? What are some tips you have?
I think my tip is don't try to do everything all at once. And so I know that we all want to really bad, but I'm really big on, well, and my coach has to keep me from squirreling because I like to squirrel and chase like fun things, but it's stick to the thing, whatever that is. So write down a big brain dump of all the things you would love to do. And then from that, just pick three and just kind of narrow down and say, "Okay, these are the three things I want to do to to be lead generators for my business." And then from there say, "Well, what are daily actions that I can do in those three things?" And then like truly write that down and stick to the plan. And whatever you choose, you got to stick to it for at least 6 to 9 months. Like, don't give up on it. If you truly believe in it, like, stick to it. And then at the end, always evaluate. So if you evaluate and realize this is not making me money, let it go and maybe add something else in there. But consistency is the biggest thing, and not chasing all of the shiny things around us. That's the big one. I read a book that said that sometimes we quit before it hits because we're ready for something different. So a lot of times when it's hard, that's when it's about to hit. But just be true to yourself. Like whatever you choose for your social media or the way that you market yourself, be that person, because in the end that's the people that you're going to attract, and it's going to be your clients, and that's the people you want to work with. So
So good. I could chat with you forever and keep going. I love your energy. I love all that you do for our community, for our agent friends across the country and the world. And thank you for spending your time with me today, Maggie.
Jenny, thanks for having me.